So, at this point, you're all probably sick and tired of hearing everyone's theories for what actually happened at the end of Rebirth and how the rainbows mean 14 different things, why Aerith is secretly Genova, why Chadley and Maya are going to be Omega in a VR secret boss fight, the list goes on. But recently, with the release of the Ultimania and the Inside series, I believe we're being pushed into asking some different questions that take us away from the multiverses and the alternate timelines.
Now then, without further ado, intertwine and circle the planet without end. A cycle of continuous convergence and divergence. The ceaseless ebb and flow that is.
In the Ultimania, the developers have brought up Yogacara, which is a Buddhist philosophy and psychology of the study of cognition, perception, and consciousness. Now, I'm way out of my depth with that, but just at a surface level glance, you can see straight away how it's being applied to their definition of what the Lifestream in the Remake Trilogy actually is. This to me is the biggest point in this video, as they've just told us that, well, yes, but also no when it comes to the quote multiverse with the use of the phrase collective consciousness, which for those if you don't know, to give a bare bones version of it, as I'm not an expert in psychology, is a name given to explain the specific human phenomenon such as a common fear of snakes. It's something we all potentially share, right? And to what should be no surprise to anyone, there's actually an NPC in Cosmo Canyon that presents this as a theory.
I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the Lifestream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory.
A spiritual manifestation of our knowledge and memories, our hopes and our dreams. This to me straight away says that all of our theories about a multiverse or alternate timelines is way off, as they're pushing us into a completely different direction here, right? Bugenhagen in the original wasn't really anything more than an exposition dump character, and in Rebirth it's not entirely different. And when you're making a narrative, you don't give the audience, or the player in this case, irrelevant information from something like that. So knowing that, and with everything we've just seen, it's a safe bet, I find, that these different worlds are actually like a spiritual manifestation within the Lifestream itself. Now, I want to take us back to the ending of Remake, the moment where the multiverse, alternate timeline, all those theories, they all sprouted from this one moment. And in Under Junon and in Costa del Sol, everything's given just a little bit of context.
I could feel them slipping away one by one, and the tighter I held on, the more I lost.
I know. I felt the same. It was like they were sucking them straight out of my head.
Tell me, what color would you say this is?
none.
Thing is, it used to be white.
We learn here that Aerith has lost some of her memories, right? She and the audience, or the player in this case again, have no clue as to exactly what memories she's lost. We just know that something's missing. And the indication for this is her white materia, okay? It's turned clear, it's empty, it's drained of colour. And we learn that this happened since the party left Midgar, after the battle with the Arbiter of Fate, the Whispers, and Sephiroth. So what exactly does this mean? What memories has she lost? Well, for me, this means that what the party did at the end of Remake wasn't creating branching timelines or multiverses. I believe it was said in the Remake Ultimania that the battle with the Arbiter of Fate was so Sephiroth could gain control of the Whispers, and seemingly a side effect of that, or at least for my theory anyway, was that what actually happened was our party's been cut off from the Lifestream. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, it's not cut off in the sense that they can never return to the planet, like Genova. We know that's not true, right? But more in the sense that they don't have access to that collective unconsciousness, right? The door is closed, it's just not locked. Why do I say that? Well, because the white materia is empty. These are the memories she has lost, right? Not the memory that's direct from her past, but the memory of the Cetra. You know, all the abilities she could use and utilize throughout the game. She doesn't do what she did in Remake once in Rebirth. There's nothing like appearing to Cloud in Sector 5, for example, okay? But when did that happen exactly? I think my bet anyway, at least, is that during the fight with the Arbiter of Fate at the end, there's a specific clip where what looks like a rainbowy live stream effect just comes out and it wraps all around their heads, and they're shown Red 13. They're shown the ending of the original Final Fantasy VII game, right? That's the moment I think that happens, and that's actually what is happening there. Because it's not touched on again in this game. But does it make sense that they're being shown the ending of the original game? Possibly, but I think it's more that's the door being closed on their ability to access the live stream, or at least the knowledge of it at that point. The interlude opens up with the Whisper Tornado seen at the end of Remake around the Shinra building, and we see all the party members being pulled out of the wreckage, seemingly either dead or unconscious. For the sake of this argument, we're going to go with unconscious, right? As that's the state Cloud and Aerith are in, and I think it stands to reason that the rest are, considering we see at least Red 13 wake up during it, right? This for me is a direct result of the ending. Remember when we said about the party losing the connection to the live stream in the previous part of this? This is the game telling us that it's not just Aerith that's lost it, it's the entire party, right? This is where the different individual worlds start coming into play, and this one is a very specific set. I can't say it's just the one because we know they're multiple play. That's shown by the stamp dogs, right? We all know the stamps. But I think their purpose here is to not let us keep track of which world is which. In the multiversal sense, they're just to show, to use the phrase again, the convergence and divergence of different worlds. Okay. But let's talk about Zack. What is the point of Zack in this story? Well, I think they've told us already.
違う角度からこの世界を見るっていうそういう役割を果たしてもらいたくて、早めに登場してもらってます。今回のキャラクターとは別にこの舞台にリメイクリバースの舞台になっている星世界がどんなものかっていうのももう一つのキャラクターとしてその星自体も出したかったんで、そこにザックスは深く絡んでもらえるといいなと思っています。
As they say there, we wanted the planet to be more of a character, with a clip of Zack, right? Straight away from his interlude story. That for me is interesting. But what does it mean? Well, we obviously don't know for certain, and I assume we'll find out in part 3, as they have told us in the ultimate that we're going to get answers. But to spitball for a moment, and bear with me, I think this all fits at least. I'm going to say that the planet takes Zack and characters like Biggs from right before their death to protect Aerith within the livestream. While they're still cut off, and while the door on that is closed, the livestream is protecting her, right? She's the last Cetra, she's the last steward of the planet. The planet needs her, it needs her to be okay, at least in the livestream, right? Can't die twice. But why Zack and Biggs, right? I think it's because there's no one else. There's also one other reason that I don't see a lot of people talking about, if anyone. I think I've seen it being brought up once, and that was it. The reason why it's Zack and Biggs is because of Aerith. And I'll expand upon this later on. What we're seeing are Aerith's unconscious live stream worlds. Right? This is her collective unconscious that we're seeing. But let's put a pin in that for now, because there's more to the interlude story that we haven't gone over yet. Because this entire section of the game, on the surface, doesn't add anything to the game as a whole, right? It's just Zack and Biggs, they just kind of meander about because they don't know where they are, they don't know why or how they got there, apart from knowing that they were about to die, they had a strong wind, bang, they wake up in this version of Sector 5, right? You also don't know what time of day it is or how long it's been since the events of their near death or maybe death. We don't know that one. So, but there is a point that they essentially stop and look at the camera and ask, why is my internal body clock fried? For me, that's the developers telling us exactly what's going on here, right? There can't be alternate timelines because there is no time progression, right? Notice how every scene is in the middle of the day that we see Zack. You see Zack outside, it's the middle of the day. We see Zack in a tunnel and in the Shinra building. We don't see what the time of day is outside. Every time he's outside, it is the middle of the day. And on top of that, everything about Zack's interlude story has no movement in time and doesn't leave mid-go. And I think that's because it's not supposed to. Because for me, this entire section of the game is just showing that the planet has just got Zack and Biggs essentially on standby. Biggs unfortunately gets gunned down by Shinra soldiers in what I assume is fate trying to intervene here like a white blood cell. Because if they are alive, you're not supposed to be in the live stream. These two are interesting, right? As Red 13 is kind of a simple character here. Aerith in Remake gives him a connection to the Cetra, right? He tells Cloud in the Skywall date in Rebirth that he could see the future, right? In Remake, he was used as the info dump for the Whispers in the same way Bugenhagen is used as the info dump for the live stream, right? He was also the only one in the party at the start of the interlude that wakes up and saves Aerith. Marlene, however, we don't get a lot of her in this game, and everything we see of her is in the interlude itself. Because she's another one Aerith gave a vision to, just like Red 13 in the remake. Just like everyone else in the interlude though, her entire role revolves around Aerith, and it's almost like she's just there to guide Zack in some way. You know, to get him caught up on the actual threat and the importance of looking after Aerith, making sure she's safe. Obviously, this whole section of this is just trying to spin a thread on very little, because we're not given a lot of either of these two. But I feel like just because it's a tiny role that they have and that they serve in this part of the game, it doesn't mean it's not important to the grand scheme of everything. And when you look at it as it's the will of the planet trying to protect Aerith, I think it actually starts to make a little bit more sense why the two of them are there. Because let's not forget, she does hear Barrett through the live stream at the end of the remake, and the interlude, she's in the same spot with Elmira and Zack, right? And I wonder why. Aerith herself is inarguably the biggest factor for why what we thought was a multiverse or different timelines at the start of this whole thing, and now I'm going to say she's the biggest reason against it. Okay, every single element of what we see and who we meet in these worlds are directly linked to Aerith, whether it's through her connections with people, with her homes, you know, both the Sector 5 and the Shinra building, her experiences, her emotions, her fears, it all connects with her at the center of this.
Only dumbasses believe that shit.
Just stay with me a little bit longer while I lay out all the pieces we see in the interlude section. Aerith gave Red 13 and Marlene abilities at the Cetra at the end of Remake. Biggs and Aerith are both childhood friends. Kyrie and Aerith know each other from the Kids Are Alright novels. Aerith and Miss Folia have a connection through Biggs. Elmira and Aerith are found family. Aerith and Zack are each other's first loves. Aerith, Cloud and the rest of the party are also another found family for her. Aerith's home is the Sector 5 slums. The Shinra building and Hojo's lab, for better or for worse, are another home to Aerith. This absolutely cannot be a coincidence and is 100% intentional. Right, and as she says at the end of chapter 13,
We could call it a homecoming. Or homeward bound, maybe? Let's just call it a dream. My dream, to be precise.
But why is she calling it a dream, right? Because dreams are part of the philosophy of the collective unconscious. We all have and probably will experience dreams like teeth falling out, falling or flying, not being able to speak, or God forbid, needing to use the toilet. This brings us back to that Cosmo Canyon NPC.
What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak?
This is how people in the world of Final Fantasy VII peer through that looking glass, right? It's through their dreams. It's just another layer on that philosophy of the collective unconscious, or Yogacara, right? Dreams are the state of the live stream, and that veil between when you're unconscious in the real world and your unconscious collective is incredibly thin. It's just like Cloud, right? He goes to sleep in the Golden Saucer, and what happens to him? He experiences the world where Zack's interlude is taking place. As he gets unconscious from sleeping, he gets to peer through that literal looking glass and see what's going on in the live stream itself. I think this is just the developer's way of showing that this is how this works in a very subtle way. But we also know it's not the only way you can interact with the live stream itself. You know, if you go back to the Cave of the Gi, when they're on the River Styx section, this happens.
What?
No, Zack literally calls out Aerith's name, and then it cuts to Aerith hearing it, essentially, or feeling it, because it's her hand in the live stream itself. They're not doing this for no reason. This is 100% intentional again, and it's just another nail in the coffin of the multiverse theory for me. These worlds are the live stream. Why is Aerith hearing Zack's call? Because it's her unconscious mind in the live stream. Now, let's talk about that loyal little stamp, right? If they're not for the multiverse, then what exactly are they for? I alluded to this earlier slightly, but as I said, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're more to show the fluidity of the live stream. My line of thinking for that is that the mechanics of the interlude dream worlds are kind of like a kaleidoscope, right? You have that one image that is just constantly shifting. And for me, that's the stamp dogs, right? You have Zack on this straight line remaining a constant. So if you overlay Zack on a kaleidoscope and have that shift, that's the representation of the whole interlude story, right? That the dogs don't inherently mean anything majorly important. They're just a visual representation of how these worlds converge and diverge. The live stream ebb and flows, right? They're just going up and down, side to side, and Zack's just all going on one straight path. And I think as well, they're clearly a way for the devs to make fun of the multiverse theories, because this Johnny clip, they know they're not as important as we've made them out to be. But that's just my interpretation, right? I don't think we'll get a detailed explanation of exactly how it works, because I don't think it's necessarily that important to know. But that's just my take on it. Your mileage may vary though. It's like the boundary between worlds. The hows and whys aren't important at the end of the day. We're talking about a high concept metaphysical space in regards to a spiritual manifestation of everything that has happened and will happen in one single planet. Right? Yes, that's a bunch of word salad, I know, but bear with. But I do believe the boundary between worlds can give us an insight into everyone's favorite point of contention, and that is the rainbows. The rainbows, I don't think, have just one single use in Remake and Rebirth. And I say in Remake because they've been here since the beginning. If we look at the summons, when that animation plays, you can see a rainbow effect around the materia or around the character. There are scenes where Biggs and Zack are picked up by the whispers, the flashback for Zack and Marlene, when Zack makes his choices. Pretty much they're used all over the place in the interlude. They're also used around the life springs scattered throughout the world, right? They're also a signifier for when fate's being challenged. But the most important thing, I think, with the rainbows is they're used to signify a mental state of someone. The cracks we've seen in the sky above the Sector 5 slums and at the end of the game in the final CG cutscene, I think are the most important part about the rainbows and the boundary between worlds. Just like how the developers have said that these worlds aren't like typical multiverses or timelines, saying that these cracks in the sky aren't necessarily a sign of the end of the world, for me, is huge, right? And I think to get a better idea of what they could possibly mean, we have to look back at the original. So I'm going to be very vague with the exact details of the scene, so there's going to be some spoilers, but not many, hopefully. So, spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. These cracks in the sky, as we know, are shown in the original during the live stream sequence with Cloud and Tifa, right? I'm willing to bet that just like in the original, in the Remake Trilogy, they're being used to symbolize a person's mental state, right? Or at least the amount of stress on a person's psyche. And if we compare the two cracks that we see, they're similar but different, right? The crack in Aerith's dream world is a lot lighter and more of a one-sided color, right? It's very, very pale. It's very faded. It's not as prominent as the one we see at the end in the final cutscene that only Cloud can apparently see, which in stark contrast is so vibrant, it's so bright, it's also bigger, right? And if you look directly in the middle of it, you can see what I'm going to go out on a limb and say is the edge of creation, which the edge of creation isn't something we know a lot about, but it's heavily speculated that it's going to be like a mind palace situation. Everything that happens there is in Cloud's head, or at least in a space between like the boundary between worlds, right? It's between the live stream and the physical world. It's somewhere in between, if not just straight up in the mind. Aerith as a character in the Remake Trilogy is an interesting one, right? And I've suggested in this video is the center and the key to the mystery of this trilogy. In Remake, she's introduced and is our introduction also to the Whispers, right? And throughout Remake, she's constantly alluding to the moments and events that she's got zero right in knowing. We all know that. She's also like astro projecting herself across space. And then we get to Rebirth, right? And that's all gone. She's much more in line with the standard era from the original, but with the difference of knowing that she's lost something, right? A part of herself from the final battle with the Arbiter of Fate. And not just the white materia, she's also lost in her own live stream dream worlds. And I want to go back to that and add in another point to why the Zack interlude is all in her dreams. In one world, they're terrified about the end of it, and the next, they're all accepting of their fates and just enjoying life. Every civilian in the slums in that point is acting the same way, in a way that lines up with Aerith's emotions throughout the games. And I don't think it's a coincidence, again, that Zack is primarily in a world that's more all of her negative perspectives with people terrified about the world ending. And then when it's Cloud and Aerith, it's one where everyone is happy and idyllic and accepting of the end of their existence. Because if you look at the points of the game they happen, why do we primarily see a negative emotional world? Because that, at that point in the story, is how she's feeling, right? She's constantly worried about Cloud. She's scared about the white materia. The people in these worlds are scared the world is ending because she's worried about Sephiroth destroying the planet. Then after Cloud and Aerith have the fall in the Temple of the Ancients, and what I'm saying is a near-death experience for the pair of them, right? like a 1 foot in the door type of deal. It's just enough to reopen that door for the live stream. She regains that white materia. Obviously, we know there was a white materia in the interlude story because you see it at the beginning, but Aerith's unconscious, now she's not. But at that point, the civilians are all happy. Yes, it's a different world, but there's a complete tonal shift. They're not happy, they're accepting of everything, right? And while Final Fantasy VII is about loss, it's also about acceptance. And those two themes are Cloud and Aerith. Aerith being the acceptance is exactly why there is no multiverse or other timeline trickery with her death. Like, let's not get this twisted. She is 100% gone. Okay? But death isn't the end. You know, this isn't anything new for the narrative of Final Fantasy VII, as spoilers again for the original. We see Aerith at the end summon Holy and use the live stream to physically push back the meteor. So there is something at least the Cetra can do once they're gone. And let's not forget as well, Aerith even says to the party in the Temple of the Ancients that it's not an end. In time, will eventually come back. And yes, I'm well aware that there's this theory that Cloud creates a different world because the rainbow light appearing around the parry he does to Sephiroth towards the end. I am very well aware of that. But as Sephiroth says,
when the boundaries of fate are breached, new worlds are born.
There is one very important thing to note here for why a new world isn't made, and that's because she's dead. Fate wasn't actually breached at that point. It was close, but she's still dead. So there was no breach in Fate's grand design, in its grand tapestry. She still ended her life, or she had her life still ended there. And how do I know this exactly? Because of this. In the Remake Trilogy, we have these static filters, right? They're essentially a trauma filter. They come in two different flavors. There's green, there's red. Green is for a fake memory and red is for a real one. It's subtle, but we've seen 1 or 2 red filters in the past. I think it might actually be a total of 3, but it's a third one with this one, right? As Aerith is falling to the ground and the material is bouncing away, the filter is red. Or pink, whichever one you want to pick. What does this mean? It means that the Aerith at the end in the final cutscene, it's the same as in Remake when she's in Elmira's garden visiting Cloud, right? She's just astro projecting herself. The only difference being here is in Rebirth, she is dead. She's doing this from the live stream. She's not doing it from the Shinra building or anywhere else. She's just doing it from the live stream. You know, she's there to be Cloud's emotional support ghost, right? Because this poor man, he's about to crack, right? Visual representation of that in-game. And bless her, she's trying her best. Just how throughout the game, her and Tifa have been slightly nudging Cloud to open up about more and remember his past. I also think that the only time we have Cloud see Aerith again is going to be the Returns to Forgotten Capital, which is going to kickstart the live stream part of the next game, right? I feel like it's going to make it so much more uneasy if we never see her until this part, and the party is getting even more increasingly uneasy about how, quote, okay Cloud is acting all the time. You know, it's a complete 180 on how Rebirth went, where the party grew closer together and Cloud just broke down more and more as the game went on. The last game is the party breaks down more and more as Cloud is just okay with everything, right until we get the Ben funeral scene from Scrubs at the Forgotten Capital return. So let's bring this all together. The livestream is home to an infinite amount of worlds that are derived from a collective knowledge and memory of all life on the planet. It may seem similar to a multiverse or an alternate timeline. The comparison for me ends just as soon as it began, as those events and people and it can change, but as we see with the mindset of the developers using psychiatric terms such as a collective unconscious and the Buddhist practice of Yogacara, the idea behind what we're being shown is much more spiritual and far less scientific, as the mind and the livestream are more of an afterlife and the belief of what comes after as opposed to a different reality. The other worlds we've been shown throughout Rebirth and in Remake as well is in the Zack Interlude section are possibly Aerith's unconscious worlds. Every element we've seen in them represents or has a connection to her mental state and also her emotional and physical ties to the people and places around her. Some, like Kyrie or Miss Folia, could even possibly be used as a way to give the message of following your dreams or a fear of chasing those dreams. Zack, though, I feel has become a POV character for the planet and is set up in a way to have his relationship with Aerith expanded upon for the third game. As if he's in her unconscious world and she's now returned to the planet. How does that play out? Like, how does that relationship expand? Did Aerith actually bring Zack and Biggs into this world? Was it the planet? If it was, why? I guess we're just gonna have to wait and truly find out. The developers said that the Remake Trilogy is a way to bring in all the compilation material into the core story of Final Fantasy VII, and with only a passing understanding of novels like The Kids Are Alright, Lifestream Black and Lifestream White, as well as mobile games like Mobius Final Fantasy, giving us a much better understanding of how the Lifestream works and how hope and dreams can be turned into reality. This is all in service of, like every other element in the Remake Trilogy, is to elevate and expand upon lesser explored parts and obviously the core themes of the original story. After all, a rising tide lifts all ships, and with a philosophy from the developers to present the world of Final Fantasy VII in a far bigger way, using Aerith and her connection to the live streamers, etc., and by extension the planet itself, we come back around to this quote again. Now, naturally, we're not going to know the exact direction that they're going to take us in, because it's their story to tell and we've only got 2/3 of it, right? They're saving this for the finale of it. And I'm not going to pretend to know exactly. Hopefully I proposed everything in this video just simply as a theory and not a fact. And I could just be flat out wrong. Or maybe I'm right for wrong reasons. Like, whichever is fine. I'm personally just here for the ride. But that's going to bring this video to an end. I hope everyone could follow along with the ramblings of a rando on the internet. But as usual, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment. If you can't think of a comment, just leave live stream in the comment box below to let me know that you made it this far. And also like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I have some more Final Fantasy videos I'm working on, though not necessarily for 7 or the Remake Trilogy, but the wider franchise as a whole. But any and all support is welcome, and I'll catch you in the next one. I hope you enjoy your day. See ya.